Welcome to Website Success, the ultimate podcast that turns website zeros into heroes. I'm your host, Chrissy Ray, and with over 25 years of website creation experience under my belt, I'm here to guide you every step of the way. Join me on this exhilarating journey, and you'll learn how to transform your online presence, attract your target audience, and effortlessly convert them into loyal customers. Let's embark on this transformative adventure together and conquer the digital world one pixel at a time. Hey everyone, welcome back to Website Success. In the last episode, I talked about color psychology. And so you learned a little bit about how to choose that sort of base color that you're going to use for your website or your brand based on the personality of your brand and how you want that brand or your website to make your target audience feel, how you want them to react emotionally to your website. In this episode, I'm going to take that a step further and talk about color theory. And specifically, I'm going to talk about how to choose colors that look well together. So creating a color palette. Let's get started. And the first thing I want to answer is, what is color theory? In a nutshell, it's the science and art of using colors. So it's kind of like grammar rules for colors. If you think about the rules of grammar, these are the rules for color. And it helps you to understand which colors look good together and why. And we'll start with the basics, which would be the primary tool of color theory. That's going to be the color wheel. If you think of a circle with all of the colors on the rainbow, that's your color wheel. You've probably seen one before, maybe in your art class or something like that. But the color wheel, if you haven't seen one before, just search for a color wheel and you'll get lots of examples to come up. On your color wheel, you have your primary colors, which are red, blue, and yellow. You can't use other colors. You can't mix other colors together to create those primary colors. They only exist as those primary colors. So you can't mix two other colors to make red, for example. But if you mix those primary colors together, then you get what are called the secondary colors. So for example, if you mix red and blue together, you'll get purple. If you mix blue and yellow together, you'll get green. And then if you mix red and yellow together, you're going to get orange. You also have what are called tertiary colors, and those are going to be combinations of primary and secondary colors. So for example, you can take blue and green and create a bluish green or blue-green. You can take yellow and orange and mix those together to make a yellowish orange or an orangish yellow, and so on. There's many, many combinations of colors that you can create using that wheel. The color wheel is going to be your best friend when picking these color combinations, and those combinations are often referred to as color schemes or color palettes. You pick which one you want to use. I personally have the preference for color palettes. That's what I'm going to use in this episode. Now, using the color wheel as a reference, there are several what are called color harmonies or color harmony rules that you can use to create aesthetically pleasing color combinations. And the first color harmony that I want to talk about is complementary. And a complementary color palette is going to have colors that sit opposite each other on the color wheel. So think of color combinations like red and green, blue and orange, etc. And when you use complementary colors, you're going to create contrast and stability. So it's sort of like using the yin and yang of color combinations. A really good example of a company that uses a complementary color palette is going to be FedEx. They use purple and orange, or at least in their current iteration, they use purple and orange. And those are complementary colors. And they carry that palette, they use it in their logo, but they carry it over to their website. And so if you go to fedex.com, you'll see that that website is primarily purple and orange along with black and white. And by the way, you'll notice that a lot of brands do use black and white in their palettes along with those primary colors. Now, I tend to use black and white, but I don't necessarily put them in my color palette. Some designers do put black and white in their color palette. I just sort of take it as a given that I'm going to be using it. So it's up to you if you want to include it when you're creating your color palette, if you want to include black and white in there. Now, another color harmony that you might want to consider is analogous. And analogous palettes consist of colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So think of blue and green, or red and orange, or green and yellow. And analogous colors are going to create a cohesive look. It's like the family of colors that gets along really well. Really good example of a brand that uses analogous colors is Subway. They use green and yellow for their logo. And if you go to their website, you'll see that they carry those colors over to their website, again, along with white and black. Another color harmony is triadic. And a triadic palette uses 3 colors that are more or less equally spaced around the color wheel. And you can think of maybe using all 3 primary colors. So for example, a palette that's got red, blue, and yellow, or all of the secondary colors. So green, orange, and purple. Triadic colors tend to be very vibrant and they can create dynamic visual contrast. There are a few brands that use triadic color palettes. Popsicle is a really good example. They use yellow, red, and blue for their logo, and they carry that over onto their website. And another good example is Fanta. Fanta is the soda brand. They use a lot of orange and a sort of purplish blue and green for their logo. And again, both of those brands carry those color palettes over to their websites. Another color harmony that I want to talk about is monochromatic. And that's all about using a single color, but using different shades of that color. So think of light blue, medium blue, dark blue, etc. An example of a brand that uses a monochromatic color palette would be Starbucks. They use green and white in their logo, and then if you go to their website, you'll see that it includes several different shades of green, along with the white and the black. Now, there are other color harmonies that you can use to help you create a color palette, but I do think that these options are going to give you a good start. So how do you turn these different color harmony rules into a color palette for your website? Well, you start off with your base color based on the color psychology that we covered in the previous episode. So for example, you want to think about your target audience, the brand voice that you want to achieve, and that information should help you come up with a primary color that's going to really speak to your target audience. Once you get, and I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said primary color because that's a specific type of color, but your base color, your main base color. And once you've got that base color, then you can use color harmony to come up with the other colors that'll go with it. I recommend starting simple and create a color palette that's got 2, 3, maybe 4 colors. Once you get a little bit more experienced, then you can add a few more. But 2 or 3 colors is usually plenty to get started. And you can add those colors to your palette, use those color harmony rules to create a pleasing palette. There are a lot of tools out there that can help you do this. One tool that I use a lot is Coolors, which you can get at Coolors, COOLORS.co. Another tool is Adobe Color, which you can get to at color.adobe.com. Now with Coolors, which again, that's my tool of choice, with a paid plan, which I have, you can pick the method that you want to choose the color palette with. So you can say that you want to choose monochromatic colors or analogous colors, complementary colors. So you can use the color harmony that speaks to you, and you can play around with it from there. Now, before you run over to Coolors or Adobe Color, I do want to talk a little bit about accessibility. Not everyone sees color the same way. Some people have color blindness and some people have low vision or no vision. So when choosing colors, make sure there's enough contrast between the text and the background color so people can read that text. And there are tools like the WebAIM contrast checker that can help you with this. So just look up WebAIM, WEBAIM contrast checker. And if you're using Coolors or Adobe Color, both of those have some accessibility tools that you can use to help you create an accessible color palette. So make sure you use them. Now, before you finalize your colors, it's a really good idea to test them out. Coolors has a really cool palette visualizer that you can use to see what your colors might look like on a website. So it doesn't actually build the website for you, but it just sort of puts them into an example website. And you can also create a brand board with your chosen colors using a tool like Canva or Photoshop or whatever your graphics tool of choice is. And once you create that brand board, you can share that with some of your friends, your family, people whose opinions you trust. Because sometimes a fresh set of eyes are going to catch something that you missed. I do also recommend sharing the palette with some of the members of your target audience to see what they think about it. If it speaks to them, great. If they don't like it at all, then you can go back to the drawing board or the palette board. All right, so that's a wrap on color theory. Remember, the colors you choose can make or break your website success. So take your time, test different combinations, and don't forget about accessibility. If you found this episode helpful, please leave a review and share it with someone else who could benefit from it. Until next time, I'm Chrissy Ray, and this is Website Success. Thanks for tuning in.